Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to wake up before the show. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you don't download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire Stick, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs, 2016 forward. Now on CFL Talk, joining me is the other comedian, David Morassutti.
Wide awake.
Sorry, I couldn't do it with a straight face. I apologize.
It's all good.
Anyway, okay, here we are. I just adjusting my screen a little bit. All right, we're here talking about this past weekend. The decision has been made who will represent, the two slots in the Eastern and Western final of the Canadian Football League. In the Eastern Division, we now have Hamilton going to visit Toronto for the fifth time this year, and so far the Argos are 3-1, but that really doesn't matter anymore because it boils down to just one game, doesn't it, David?
Yeah. We've seen the trend even go reverse sometimes, right? Where a team that flat out dominates during the regular season,
Yep.
you throw that out the window exactly because it's one game, and you think about playing perfect for that one game. And Hamilton right now they looked as perfect as could be against Montreal.
I don't totally agree. I think their defense is what did
Yeah.
it for them. Yeah, if you're saying was their defense perfect, absolutely. That's what I saw. I saw a perfect defense that really made Montreal look um, insignificant. The 31. Um, sorry, my apologies. I got a computer here that's not saying nice things to me. But anyway, the victory was one that was obviously never in doubt against Montreal. Truthfully, 20-3 at one point, and the final score basically was complimentary of Montreal. They really didn't do much in regards to offense. In fact, the interceptions, which seemed to be a theme for the weekend, were a key.
Yeah, this was about Hamilton realizing the way to beat Montreal was we're not going to give them the win. Montreal was going to have to earn it, and really, yeah, the I think the interceptions were definitely key because once Hamilton locked in on the lead, they knew that the only way Montreal was going to win is if Trevor Harris started to make some plays. So really, they just had to tighten down the defense and yeah, like there was just nothing. Like Montreal, they took away. Well, first Hamilton took away the biggest weapon. They took away William Stanback, which they have done numerous times. You talk about what they did right in the regular season, and they brought into the playoffs, which was make William Stanback pretty much a non-factor. And yeah, Trevor Harris finished with 364 yards. He threw the ball. He attempted 44 passes, but I don't think at any point you can win a game when you're turning over the ball as many times as they did, especially when the turnovers lead to significant points for the team that gets the turnovers.
Yeah, that was exactly what made Hamilton's victory possible, and that is they took advantage of the mistakes that Montreal made and turned them into points. It's easy to sit here and talk about a team played well or didn't play well, but the key is when a team isn't playing well, they're prone to basically being beaten. But sometimes other teams let them off the hook, right? Let them off the mat. No, Hamilton didn't do that. Montreal paid severely for the few mistakes that they made. I'm not sitting here trying to propose the idea that Montreal totally, exploded on their own. They imploded. I'm just saying that Hamilton's commitment to the game was obviously far superior, and I think they did what we both understood they needed to do. Mazzoli had to not make mistakes and just do his job, protect the ball, advance it as much as he could. while the defense, led by Simone Lawrence, played with the kind of emotion that we know is when they play their best. And then Brandon Banks. I mean, they did everything I think, David, we talked about before the game. They accomplished what we said they needed to do. And Harris didn't accomplish what we said he needed to do as well, which is find the end zone. And he might have had a little bit of an excuse because apparently I think the suggestion was, at least on the broadcast, that Eugene Lewis was hurt. If he was hurt, that is a big weapon gone out of the Montreal arsenal, almost as important as William Stanback.
Let's just say Eugene Lewis had 127 yards in that game and he was hurt. Like, clearly hurt, because he could not run down the field fast. He would get down the field, and if Harris had time, he would find him. Like, there was a couple of plays where Eugene Lewis had to make some circus catches or make some tough catches that we have seen him made. But I think a healthier Eugene Lewis gives Trevor Harris um a more dependable target, because other than Eugene Lewis, there wasn't really anybody else stepping up for Montreal to make the plays. There was the one touchdown in the end zone. I think it was to Jake Winicky that went incomplete. Like, when you're down like that, you cannot miss plays like that. And yeah, Eugene Lewis, I think, was pretty much there to take the attention away from the other receivers, and Montreal couldn't exploit that.
And Patrick Level's prediction didn't work. And when it didn't work was bad enough. But when he was a contributing factor, at least um, as a defender, the way you contribute is you defend, and you defend well. He didn't. So, he contributed to his own failure of prediction.
I thought it was quite something that on that touchdown that they particularly targeted Patrick Levels with Brandon Banks. And yeah, like, Levels did not play that right on that touchdown. I think it was the first touchdown Hamilton had, and Brandon Banks let him know. That's the thing about when you make those claims, like Levels did, to say that they're going to come out and beat Montreal, beat Hamilton at home, and I'm being a little bit kinder with the way that he said it, but that puts a target on you. And there are teams that like to do the trash talking because it psychs up the rest of the players,
Yep.
brings them all together and try to support their teammate. But other teams don't like doing that because it gives unnecessary motivation for the other team to want to, all right, you're going to say this about us, we're just going to beat you on the field. Lo and behold, that's what happened to Montreal.
Absolutely. And sometimes, your butt has to cash the checks your mouth writes, and it didn't, right? It didn't happen for Patrick Levels. Now that doesn't single him out for the reason why the game went the way it did. I think it's just like we talked about, and it is what Hamilton is and can be. They can be they're kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde. I'm going to probably irritate Cat fans. Sorry, guys. But the problem with them is that they're Jekyll and Hyde. Their emotion can lead to a really great outing, and the opposite is true as well. That it could lead to a not so good, ending, because they're a very emotional team. And the trick is, if you're going to beat them, Montreal didn't do what they needed to beat them. They didn't score early. They didn't stay in the game long enough. And the more the game went, and the more that Hamilton was in the lead, the more their emotions that are positive kicked in, and they did. So, they won the game, full value for the victory, not surprised by Montreal losing. I wouldn't have been surprised if Montreal had a won, but again, it would have taken, you know, um, getting into the end zone. It would have taken their stars being stars. And, these big games, they seem to always come down to the ordinary superstars. And by ordinary superstars, I mean, for example, you talked about Eugene Lewis, 120 plus yards in receiving, which is the work of an ordinary superstar. But they needed the Eugene Lewis that you and I both know he can be. He has the talent to go 200. Yeah, I know people think
Yeah.
I'm crazy,
No,
but
I
that's what they needed. That's what Montreal needed. They needed that kind of performance from their superstar. And unfortunately, in this game, there was nobody to pick up the slack. And like you said, Weineke wasn't the guy that we've seen through the season, especially early in the season, where he was a factor when it came to winning games. Unfortunately, without factors in winning games, you don't win games. Hamilton had the factors, Montreal did not.
and really Hamilton, I will say offensively they didn't have much going for them, but it didn't matter because their superstars, and I say this with all respect to the guys they have on offense, the true superstars of the Hamilton Ticats are on that defensive line.
Absolutely.
Garrett Davis and Dylan Wynn combined for 4 sacks and 3 forced fumbles.
Well,
That
right off the right, I'm going to contradict you only in the sense that, and
yeah,
I know you won't disagree. Dylan Wynn got 2 penalties early that gave
no, he did.
Montreal a chance, and Montreal didn't jump on that chance. That's the factor I'm talking about. That's about there are times when teams say to you, "All right, I'll give you a shot. Go ahead, take your best shot." And then if you don't knock them out with that opportunity, you don't get another chance sometimes. And this is what happened in this game. Montreal was given great opportunity early in the game, didn't take advantage. Guess what? They don't get to win because, in football, we talked about this last week, and we'll talk about this next week, and we'll talk about it 10 years down the road. One and done. You don't get to make up, to what happened yesterday, because yesterday means if you have to make up for yesterday, tomorrow's not happening for you.
Yeah, and yes, Dylan Wynn. You know what? I thought with the way that Dylan Wynn was playing, a little undisciplined on that drive where he took the two unnecessary roughness calls. That okay, Montreal, this is something you can exploit. And then, unfortunately, because they didn't exploit and they didn't take advantage, as you said, it really gave the Tiger Cats the motivation to say, you know what? They can't beat us because even if we give them opportunities, they can't take it. And I think
Absolutely.
that sent the wrong message from like Montreal sent the wrong message with that. And the Tiger Cats, the last thing you want to give that defense is confidence, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Did Trevor Harris do his part? Absolutely. Like you said, 44 throws, 28 receptions, 364 yards. We have talked about this all year, that in the Canadian Football League, it's becoming more and more apparent that we're getting a lot of these great numbers by quarterbacks. But surprisingly, and I say that now with tongue in cheek because it's not a surprise anymore. We see all too often these kinds of, offensive yards that lead to a loss. We talk about, one of the most important things, and it's becoming more and more important to me as time goes on. Harris threw a TD and an interception. He was okay. Equal as far as touchdowns and interceptions. Where we talked about with Jeremiah Mazzoli, did not make a big mistake. He threw an interception. He didn't throw it. Sorry, I apologize. He didn't throw an interception. He threw a touchdown, and he only threw for 184 yards. So that tells you right there that the defense, that don't bend, bend but don't break. Defense is true to form in this game. They gave a lot to the Montreal Alouettes, but not when it really truly mattered.
Let's just say for Trevor Harris, I mean, you're not looking for a repeat performance, but this is a far cry from the player that set a CFL playoff record for 6 touchdowns,
Yeah,
6 passing touchdowns in a game. Lo and behold, that came against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and that put the Ottawa Red Blacks at the time into the Grey Cup. Montreal, you're not going to get a 6 touchdown performance, but that's the type of performance that Trevor Harris was going to need in this game. One touchdown wasn't going to be enough for him, especially when your best offensive weapon in William Stanback had nothing going for him. And a lot of that had to do with the way Hamilton played on defense. They swallowed him up pretty good, and it was gonna be. And I knew it was gonna be on Trevor Harris to win that game. He had the yards. You just didn't have, as you said, that one stat, which is the touchdowns to go with it. You have to complete drives.
Yep. And you know what? When you think about it, they only had one field goal attempt. It was good by David Cote. But when you think about the fact that 364 yards of field acquired, of which one touchdown and one field goal is what you ended up with. That to me is that's like, wait a second, there's something wrong with that. That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't. And that's the root of what makes winning winning. You know, you got to take advantage of the opportunities you're given, and you've got to finish where the opportunity arises. You know, you take a look on the other hand. Now here's where if well, we'll look ahead to later after we talk about the other game this weekend. But Domagala was 3 for 3. Now, Hamilton, you know, this has been the year of the no field goal. You know, I can't remember a season, David, where there's been this many missed field goals, not just by new field goal kickers, not just by field goal kickers with no reputation. We're talking about field goal kickers that, you know, have a reputation like Paredes. Like I said, we'll talk about that game next. But you know, and Paredes is not one of the only field goal kickers who have had trouble this season. And it's looking like if you're going to win in the playoffs, you need a quarterback not to make a mistake and a field goal kicker to do what he's paid to do.
Yeah, and I mean, Domagalo, he had a 59 yarder. Like
Yep.
that's not you don't see that often in the CFL, but Hamilton was undone by some, poor kicking. I think we'll get into the next game and how kicking really paid a big part of it, played a big part in it. But yeah, I think if you're Hamilton, you can't come up empty with drives because even a lot of people say, "Oh, they only got a field goal." Well, that's still 3 points on the board that you got versus the no points that would really make a drive feel wasted. And for Montreal, too many drives were wasted because they couldn't. A few field goals here and there, and Montreal, they're close. This was a game decided by 11 points. A few field goals makes it that much closer and gives your team a lot more confidence that they can pick up the win.
Yeah, no, it's all about confidence. It's all about good pressure. And in the playoffs, there's good pressure and there's that other pressure, the bad stuff. And the bad pressure is the thing that stops you from winning. And you've got to put yourself in a position to win, and setting up a position to being in a position to win has to do with using good pressure, making good pressure. Now there's the pressure you put on yourself to play well, the pressure you put on the opposition, the pressure that obviously leads to points, all that stuff, instead of the pressure that leads you to try too hard, to do someone else's job, to make mistakes, to not believe in yourself. That's a lot of stuff. I can, my goodness, we could take out a football dictionary and start saying every word that's in the football language. In that vein, that's all I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of stuff that happens in a football game. It either happens right for you, or it happens wrong for you, and you make the decision. You have to do it yourself. And Montreal just couldn't in this game do what it needed to do when it needed to do it, and that's the name of that game. And now you've got a Hamilton Tiger Cat team moving on to the Eastern Final. They are the home of the Grey Cup. It will be played in Hamilton. They're one game away against doing something they haven't done since the last century, and that is go to a Grey Cup and win.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Hamilton, the sting of the fact that many expected them to to get rid of the drought 2019, only to crumble in that Grey Cup against Winnipeg. The pressure on them to win this game in the East Final against Toronto is immense because of that reason. But also,
Absolutely.
you have to think that they have to just think about winning one game, and they're back. They're back at their home field where they've really thrived. So, like, it's a real tough thing. It's such a mental battle, and that'll continue to be the case because that's what the CFL is all about. It's everything you've done going up to one this game at some point means nothing because everything can change. so easily in a CFL game.
I have a good football CFL football fan. Happens to be an Argo fan. I was on the phone with him, and we were discussing the fact that Hamilton beat Montreal, was heading to Toronto, and he was saying to me, Frank, I worry about Hamilton. That's a team I don't want to play, um, you know, in the playoffs. So that's an Argo fan talking. I think he's speaking the kind of language Hamilton fans want to hear. But then he said something to me that I'm sorry, I'm laughing now just thinking about what he said. He said, "Yeah, but as far as the game between the Argos and the Ticats are concerned, it's a win-win situation for Argo fans." And I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, it's a win-win situation for Argo fans because even if the Argos lose, they get to cheer for Hamilton to do what they've done for the last century. That's not win a Grey Cup game." And this time at home. So, we talked about pressure, the pressure again, good and bad pressure. The good pressure, we want to win it. We want to win so we can play at home. We want to win so we can play at home. Or it's the other pressure. We have to win because we have to play at home. We have to win. So, this is the beauty of being, grown men, um, you know, players who have played football all their lives to achieve a level which not many players get a chance to achieve. Not everybody gets to win a championship. It is a small class compared to the rest. Of the players, right? There are a very small percentage of players get to win a championship. Even considering how few teams there are in the CFL. I mean, granted, there's not 30 plus teams in the CFL. There's only 9, but still, the majority of players haven't won a Grey Cup, so there's pressure.
Ask Hamilton fans when they say, "Oh, but there's only 9 teams." By God, you guys should win a Grey Cup, and
This
they'll just
century,
say, and like, yeah, but it's also just about teams go on these runs, right? Calgary, how long have they been
absolutely,
been there? Winnipeg
it's
finally
on theirs now. Is on theirs, yeah.
it's on theirs now, and even Saskatchewan, they've built up a little bit of that. It takes time because you can put together the right pieces and make a run, but now in the CFL, you're seeing the teams that are able to build some sort of continuity. So I think the good thing that Hamilton has right now is they have that continuity. They just have to now deliver on that continuity and just understand. Look, we're a few plays away, one game away, and to make those few plays to put us there, and then to win the Grey. Like I think right now they can't think about winning the Grey Cup at home. They have to
No.
think about the game itself to get there.
Okay, let's
And
talk. Let's talk about Saskatchewan and Calgary. Calgary had Saskatchewan's number. They won 3. Saskatchewan won once before the game. Another one of those ones we just talked about, where team has a number, and it doesn't necessarily relate to what happens at the end. This was a game where I got to tell you, I'm seeing a lot of these posts, people riding Bo Levi Mitchell. Unfortunately, being Bo Levi Mitchell, being the great player that he's been over the years, being as famous as he is, and also a little bit cocky. He comes across a bit cocky, so it makes him for an easy target from those around him. Just enjoy watching him lose. I have to say this about Bo Levi Mitchell, and I will say this about every football quarterback there is. Quarterbacks get more credit than they deserve, and they get more blame than they deserve. Because I'll put it fresh for you folks. We'll leave Hamilton after I make this comment. I promise. David, if you want to go back, you can go back. But I'm going to go back to the Hamilton Montreal game. You know, if somebody is able to kick some field goals, the game can change. But in this game, in the Winnipeg Saskatchewan game, Paredes and Bo Levi Mitchell have had very successful careers. Is it a coincidence that Paredes, who missed 4 field goals all season, misses 3 in one game? And if he doesn't, what happens? Is Bo Levi Mitchell being made fun of?
that was exactly gonna be my point because Bo Levi Mitchell was not good in that first half. I think there's some deserved criticism for how he played in that first half. But when your team gets 3 interceptions in a first half, and they took advantage of that first one because it led to a touchdown, I think on the next play. But when you get 3 interceptions, and you miss 2 field goals, and now look, yes, Paredes has had a magnificent career, one of probably the few consistent kickers we've seen over the last few years.
Totally.
And later in the game, when they needed him to make kicks, he made them. It's funny how it works. When the pressure isn't really
So said.
on at the beginning, it seems like mentally it's the focus just wasn't there. But you kick those 2 field goals at the beginning of the game. Now your offense, okay, we're not coming away empty. What did I say? You cannot come away empty on drives in the playoffs when you have the chance to put up points. But Levi Mitchell, there was a play even in that, I think it was in that first half, where he said he had a receiver after the game. He told us he had a receiver wide open in the end zone, and the receiver blew a tire. He got hurt and went down. Plays like that are the difference between winning a game and losing a game. Because what happened with Saskatchewan, Cody Fajardo even said it. You know what? Those 3 interceptions, I walked it off because look at what they ended up. We either gave up field goals or we gave up nothing. They had the one touchdown, but Saskatchewan was still in it. And that I think that's why there's the criticism on Bo Levi Mitchell. But in that second half, I really thought Calgary was going to win it because of the way Bo Levi Mitchell was playing. He was finding Reggie Bagleton for those big plays. Kadeem Carey was still putting up really good numbers. But the thing was is that Saskatchewan knew that as long as they kept it close and the defense was able to keep the touchdowns from being, keep touchdowns off the board and made them field goals, they kept it close enough, and that proved to be costly. I think if you make those few field goals or convert on those opportunities on those interceptions, we're talking about a totally different game, and we're talking about a different quarterback getting the bad reception of fan criticism.
The discussion about playoff pressure. Here's another example of playoff pressure and how you handle it well. The Saskatchewan Roughriders return a kick for a touchdown, beginning
Oh,
of the game. Touchdown call back. Illegal block. That really wasn't an illegal block.
it
It was
was
really
it was a
that was one of the
stupid.
more marginal illegal blocks that I've ever seen. And so you have a swing of basically 14 points. What should have been a touchdown for Saskatchewan became quickly, because of the penalty, a touchdown by Calgary. Saskatchewan did not let it get to them. Their defense took over. Cody Fajardo is a good quarterback, and he really does do his best work on the run. He showed us when the passes weren't there, when his team needed some positive vibes going on. So in other words, some showing that he was benefiting from good pressure, put pressure on himself to get some first downs, and he succeeded. It helped the offense to at least become, get on an even keel. And of course, left room for the interception festival that took place in that game. I mean, holy moly, missed kicks, interceptions. I mean, we're talking the CFL is going to be synonymous with mistakes. I mean, in these two games we've seen so many mistakes, missed field goals, interceptions. I don't know. Is it the COVID year, or is it? I don't know. It's not the kind of football that you expect from pretty good football players and good organizations. You can't. I can't look at either of these organizations and say there's something wrong with them. I mean, Calgary and Saskatchewan have proven over the past few years they've been pretty good teams.
Yeah, that's really been it's the one thing. I mean, we know Bo Levi Mitchell, 10 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Not
Jeez.
many quarterbacks. A lot of quarterbacks threw more than 10 interceptions this season. Like there was a fair amount of mistakes. I'm wondering if if it was more of the quarterback play there weren't many quarterbacks that I feel like were really comfortable. This, yes, Zach Claros was. I think Michael Riley and Zach Claros kind of trumped it a little bit because of how well they did, but it feels like quite a few quarterbacks suffered a bit with this off year. Let's not forget these guys got a year older. They're not working with their because look how many quarterbacks you talk to them during the pandemic. This is, I have no one to throw to. I'm throwing the football to my kids because that's all. That's just to get the feeling of throwing a football. For defensive players, they can still run their cuts. They can still run the drills that they need to run on their own. I think they really benefited from having that time to work on their craft, and I don't think the quarterbacks really benefited from it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and then I'll extend what you're saying further by suggesting that, you know, as much as offense is talent, right?
Yeah.
It's talent that needs the benefit of repetition. And they haven't had the offenses have not had the benefit of repetition. They were told to go from 0 to 100 immediately. No, in as far as defenses are concerned, defenses are mostly planning, and the planning part to execute, it's mostly memory, because with defenses, it's not ingenuity in the sense that you're basically doing something, that you're trying to figure out along with someone else. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but with defenses, it's about basically reacting to the offense. And reacting is a lot easier than planning to avoid, what's going to happen. So I just think offenses have suffered this year in the Canadian Football League because they just haven't had the kind of time to get better. We see it every year. The season begins, the defenses are ahead of the offenses. It takes a while for the offense to overcome the defense. In other words, their skill to overcome the planning of the defenses. But they've been one step behind all along. And if you looked at Bo Levi Mitchell, we talk about him, and his failure was, for the most part, he's been throwing the ball high. Why is that? Is it because he's being rushed? Is it because he's coming off an injury year where now he's overcompensating for his throw? So he's throwing a little higher because last year when he didn't have the good body, he was throwing it too low or not far enough.
And he even said after the game that he they were asking, "Oh, what do you think about next year?" And he says, "Well, I'll see where my body is at." And they're like, "Well, didn't you tell us you were fine?" And he kind of let on say, "You're really with the injuries he was dealing with. You're never really fine." Like he suffered a significant injury right at the start of the year, so he had to not only work his way back from an injury and rehab an injury because you're teaching body parts to do certain things again. He then had to get back and play at the level that he expects of himself. And to be frank, we knew he just wasn't there. That just wasn't the Bo Levi Mitchell that. And he even said this was not what he expects of himself. He did not play to the capability that he knows he can play at. And so, yeah, I think quarterbacks this year did not have the performance they want because also we saw some suspicious offensive line play, and that makes a quarterback throw a little too early or miss throws because they're worried about the pressure. It's something I think that a lot of coaches I think are going to have to try to figure out going into next season.
That's some of your bad pressure you're talking about. If you're the quarterback, that's bad pressure. If you're the defensive line, that's good pressure. But unfortunately, the quarterbacks, being a quarterback in the Canadian Football League this season, it seems like, it seems like one has to master the Rubik's Cube, because it has not been, an easy task for any quarterback in the Canadian Football League. There's only, in my estimation, there's only one CFL quarterback that hasn't been given any grief by anyone. And by that, I mean fans, reporters. The only one who's had a clean slate is Zach Caleros. Now, that has a lot to do with the team that he's playing for, the record that they established, and the fact that they won the Grey Cup last year. So he's on a honeymoon with the fans. The media, he's a media darling because, quite frankly, this is a hard luck case. He's turned, a lot of bad luck into something really good. Good for him. And he's a very good quarterback. He is the best quarterback in the Canadian Football League this season. Now, if you want to factor in the team he plays for, go ahead. But I prefer not to do that because at the end of the day, I told you at the beginning of the show, the quarterback gets more credit than he deserves when they win, and he gets more credit than they deserve when they lose. So all we can do is go on what the quarterback does. So what he's done has been he's been outstanding as far as interception to touchdown ratio.
Mm.
His ability to turn a bad play into a good one. That's what Saskatchewan has to look forward to. But Saskatchewan, in as far as this game was concerned, they won because they did what they needed to do. And as I said, they had a bad break from the officials early. They overcame a recovering will I'll use to use what you were talking about your verbiage about Bo Levi Mitchell. They started playing well against a guy defensively that was looking like he was on an upturn. Like Bo Levi Mitchell was very close to being a hero in that game. It just he had a couple of bad breaks too. A couple of the interceptions weren't clean interceptions. They were volleyball interceptions.
Mhm. Yeah, and to be fair, he threw 2 while the other team threw 4, right? He didn't make that many mistakes, and, I think he also had the benefit of a good running back that he could take some
Hmm.
pressure off of him, and I think they did the right move of trying to get the ball into good team carries hands as much as possible. But yeah, no, I think if I'm Calgary, yes, it's disappointing you lost, but I think in that second half, when your backs were against the wall a little bit, and let's not forget, Saskatchewan pulled off an incredible play to start the half with that onside
Onside kick,
kick,
yeah.
taking advantage of
A
that
lot of guts.
penalty, right? The momentum was on their side, and what does Calgary do? They say, "Okay, they're gonna do that. We're gonna have to pick up our game now," and they did. Both teams elevated their game in that second half, and that's what made that second half really entertaining. Even though everyone was complaining about the way the first half went, the teams eventually said, "Oh, okay, we're we're pulling out all the stops now." Like they didn't hold back.
Absolutely, they did not, and it was fantastic to see, Saskatchewan, um, well, quite frankly, if there's a team, on the western side of the equation, obviously, Calgary's had some success in recent memory. Winnipeg's all they're just coming back from some success. Saskatchewan is coming back from, the Chris Jones era when they were doing well, and then he left, and then the team kind of sagged, and now they're getting a chance to basically do what they haven't done yet, but have had the ability to do it just as a reflection of their quarterback. Their quarterback is a quarterback who has done a lot, but hasn't really received the kind of sustained respect that other quarterbacks get. He hasn't. There's I don't know this invisible little level that he has to go over that I don't think he's gone over. Ask me what it is, and I'll just say that it's a Grey Cup, I guess. He hasn't done that, but he's a great quarterback. And on the precipice of that, Saskatchewan has a head coach who's the brother of a head coach in Calgary who's won a Grey Cup, who as a quarterback was a stunner. You know, the older Dickinson brother is finally on the cusp of having some success. So for me, they're kind of the underdog, good feel good story to move on. And if they can beat Winnipeg, which is going to be hard to do, it'll be a good story.
I think really the benefit that Saskatchewan and Cody Fajardo had was they went up against a team, as you said, that had that championship pedigree. They had a lot of guys with playoff experience. They had a lot of they have to go through these types of teams to understand what it means to win at this level. Cody Fajardo going into his first season never had to face that type of pressure. They have to deal with it to understand what they need to do to overcome that pressure. Unfortunately, his second, this game is going up against a team that's really battle tested, has all the confidence in the world. So he's going to have to find a way to, take what he did in that second half and manifest it for all 4 quarters. Otherwise, you know, I think it's gonna be a tough. It's already a tough game for Saskatchewan to win, but they're really gonna need Cody Fajardo to step up and take the lessons he learned from this game and put it to this game.
Speaking of take, he's gonna have to take what he's given by Winnipeg, because if he tries to take what Winnipeg isn't giving him,
Oh yeah.
there could be a world of hurt waiting for him because, that's essentially the game plan for Cody Fajardo, and that is, if I'm the coach, Craig Dickinson's telling him, ball security, ball security. Don't make any of those passes if you don't know where it's going, if you're not sure, you have to think fast. Obviously, I can sit here and I'm not talking about the guy take out a pencil and paper and start working some math out whether he can make a pass or not, but his brain's going to have to work quickly against Winnipeg, and he's going to have to make sure that he doesn't take any risky chances against Winnipeg. The defense that Saskatchewan offers can be, their pass rush, they can make some life miserable for the offensive line in Winnipeg. They've had problems. Winnipeg this year has had problems protecting their quarterback, and that's what Saskatchewan's going to have to force.
Yeah, they're gonna have to make Zach Chloros make mistakes. It's hard. He's had a lot of time to do it, but I think this is probably the better defense that they can go up against in the West. I don't think there's any doubt that Saskatchewan's defense is among the tops in the CFL because they can get pressure. But I think what we saw in this game was Saskatchewan moved things around, but AC Leonard played coverage. Like you don't expect that. You gotta throw different things at Winnipeg that they're not going to expect, and I think that's gonna bode well for them if they're able to do that.
Yeah, and I think the odds are, obviously in favor of Winnipeg. It's Winnipeg's game to lose, and it's Saskatchewan's game to win, right? They're going to have to win the game. This is not a game where they'll be able to back in like, in a way like they did with Calgary, right? That isn't the kind of win they're going to get, because if they allow it to be close, Winnipeg has big play all over it. You know, their quarterback Caleros loves the big play, and they have a few players on that team, on the receiving core, that can make the big plays. So it's going to be Saskatchewan mistake free. It's going to be a quarterback who makes the plays that he's given, and he sees them and executes them well. And it's going to take a lot of sure hands, and somehow they got to figure out their running game, because without a running game, they don't stand a chance against Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think you if you're gonna expect Cody Fajardo to throw the ball a lot, you're planning for. He's really struggled to get those deep balls past 30 yards. He can do the 20s, but he can't do the 30 past 30 yards. So I think Winnipeg is going to try their best to take away that middle of the field from him. But I think also for Fajardo, he's got to use his legs. He's going to have to do it because Winnipeg's going to just sit there they're going to try to make him throw, right? And so he's got to find ways to get out with his legs, extend plays, give his receivers a chance, because Winnipeg is they don't have many weaknesses. So he's going to take what they give him, but he also has to find a way to create more for his team as well.
Moving over to Toronto and Hamilton, the question I have, David, the thing that I have to ask is that the Hamilton Tiger Cats right now are the better team than the Argos at this point. And this is why I'm going to say, because they've proven it with Damagala, that they have a field goal kicker.
Mm.
The Argos beat them twice. The last two times they beat them was because of poor field goal kicking by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Even the most saintly Argo fan has to admit that the Argos won because of poor field goal kicking by Hamilton. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying now. But here's the thing that I'm going to add. The qualifier is, how much improved can the Argos be with Rogers in the lineup?
I think that's a massive addition. I think if Peter Nicastro can play, that's an even bigger improvement because the offensive line is going to have to do its best to hold that Hamilton defense. But if you give McLeod as many weapons that he can throw to, because Hamilton can't cover everyone, he's going to have to get that ball out quick. He's going to have to make plays quick. And yeah, they got to get point. They got to figure out ways to get points early, because I think if you give Hamilton the opportunity to, they're going to take their deep shots. I think the Argos game plan the Ticats perfectly last time, But I think this time, I think Hamilton learned their lesson. So I think the Argos are gonna have to take what they give him. But I think Eric Rogers, he does more than just make plays. With his catching ability, he can make blocks. He can do those subtle little things that you expect to really take the game to another level. So I think it's going to be a close battle, but Hamilton's defense, the Argos' offensive line is the one thing that concerns me as a weakness going into this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the question is, will John White play? If John White doesn't play, then DJ Foster has to play a better game, one of his better games. He's been a little up and down. You know how I feel about him. I think the guy is amazing. And, the fact that he can catch and run with the best of them is a good asset. The Argos have a history of having those kinds of players that have made championship teams, and that'll be important. But then we come down to the quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks, Jeremiah Mazzoli and McLeod Bethel Thompson, are not respected, I think, as much as they deserve. Listen. I'm not saying they're the greatest quarterbacks to have ever played for their teams. That's not what I'm saying. But I seem to think that both fan bases are hard on both those quarterbacks. They both have something to prove in this game.
Yeah, I know. I think they do. Mazzoli wasn't there when they made the trip to 2019. Bethel Thompson, a lot of people wonder why he was still the starting quarterback. So both have a chip on their shoulder. It's which one is going to make the mental mistakes. There's going to be mental mistakes in this game because the pressure is going to be there. Whoever doesn't make those mental mistakes is going to come away with the win. I think that's going to be the key driving point for the Argos with McLeod. Don't lose us the game because we have guys that could help us win this game.
Yeah, both teams defensively, Hamilton's had 22 sacks, Toronto 21. So as far as getting to the quarterback is concerned, you can look on both sides of the field and see the same kind of danger.
I really do. I think both. I mean, the Argos defense, surprisingly for a lot of people, is much better than I think they give them credit for. Susceptible a little bit to the big plays, but I think if they really tighten up in that area, Hamilton's going to really show because their offense wasn't good against Montreal. I'm going to be honest; they took advantage of a few plays, but they weren't good from start to finish. So I think the Argos, as long as they don't make the mistakes to give Hamilton extra opportunities, I think that's going to bode well for them.
Yeah, they lead a little bit. Hamilton does in rushing yards, not much, but a little. Passing yards, these guys are pretty much even. So the defense, in as far as what I think will make the difference in this game, David, and maybe it's because of 14 games watching the Argos and Hamilton, the key is going to be interceptions. And to me, that's what's going to happen. It's the DBs that are going to make the difference here. Um, Especially now that I think we both can agree that Domagala has proven that he can play up to the same level as Boris Beatty. So the Boris Beatty advantage, I think, will not play in this game.
No, but maybe if the pressure, maybe a little more pressure gets to one or the other. I think Beatty,
Younger guy?
the younger guy going up against the veteran, I'm going to give the tie to the veteran. You always do. But yeah, I think turnovers, Hamilton's going to try to win that turnover battle. And I think that
It's going to be the
it,
difference.
it's going to be the difference. It always is in these playoff games.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to Hamilton, for them to win, they're going to have to take the ball away from the Argos. The Argos, they need to do something with the football. They all year this year, they've gone from not being able to do something with the football to doing something with the football. Beginning of the game, not being able to do anything with the football. Then the game starts to come to the closing minutes, and all of a sudden they figure out how to do things. I'm not sure they can go to that well again. They really do have to start this game well and proceed throughout the game, playing better than Hamilton. I'm not sure there's a late game push that'll get them over this time. I think, like I said, field goals missed by the Hamilton Tiger Cats led to Toronto victories. They can't depend on that anymore.
No, they're going to have to find ways to put up points and score touchdowns. They're going to have to find a way to do it early because the longer it goes that they don't score, Hamilton's just going to get that much more confident that they can stop them.
Absolutely. David, it's been a lot of fun. We'll have to leave it there.
Sounds good, Frank. Can't wait
All right.
for more football.
Yeah, Sunday's going to be fun. Thank you, David. For David Morassutti, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk. Aaron live Mondays at 1 p.m. tonight at 10 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.
Maybe Eduardo forgot about us.
I think an emergency happened. We apologize to the next show.
Yeah, I sent him a message just in case.
I hope he's okay.
Well, while we wait for Eduardo, do you want to give your predictions for the game?
Well, we cover the Argos, right?
Yeah. Well,
I
what's
guess
your Grey Cup prediction?
I
Who's
think I
won?
think the Argos can win, and it'll probably be the best game that McLeod Bethel Thompson has ever played.
I think the week of practice really will help them. Like that extra week of preparation, they haven't
And
had.
and the wear and tear on that other game. I know that it's doesn't really help, but yeah, and Saskatchewan, they're in tough. For my Saskatchewan friends, I hope that they can do it, but the reality is Winnipeg is the favorite for a reason.
No, I think it'd be interesting to see if it's Toronto Winnipeg with a rubber match, considering Toronto handed them their first win.
Yeah, they're 1-1.
So that's going to be, I think, the cherry on top of the cake in that case.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you know what? But it is gonna be it's gonna come down with Hamilton and say the same thing again. If the emotions work for them on the correct side of the equation, they'll win. If their emotions get the better of them and things aren't going their way and they let it get to them, that's what the Argos have to do. The Argos have to put Hamilton in the position where they actually have some doubt, you know. The kicker misses a field goal. Like I'm not saying that Hamilton will unravel, but I know that if the kicker misses a field goal, the fans will. So, and the team won't be far behind. So the Argos need to play like I said about Saskatchewan. They have to play perfect football because I think you're going to see probably the best version of Hamilton we've seen all year.
Yeah, I know. I don't think Hamilton could have played as bad in that last loss that Toronto looked convincingly good. But yeah, but Toronto looked that bad, and that's what made it not that's what put it in Toronto's favor. But I think Toronto's defense can make plays. It's just the right guys have to make the plays, right? I think even
At
if
the right time.
you don't get to Jeremiah Mazzoli, you got to keep him in that pocket. I think he's still that guy that can move around with his legs, extend plays, and it can bite teams because he'll find that guy down the field if he's open more times than not. It didn't happen last time. It could have been a totally different game if he
He
made
was
the
he
plays.
was not effective at all. I mean, his passes were, Bo Levi Mitchell it like
Yeah.
high, short. He again, this is not something I don't think it's a quarterback problem. I think it's quarterback's problem. I think
Mm.
the lack of exhibition games, I think it really put offenses, I think, behind the wheel. And when you're not when when momentum is working against you and they haven't had a chance to really get the momentum of putting an offense out there, um, you know, like they plan it because the defenses are executing better and are better prepared for games. And that's both these games. It's all going to come down to how prepared are Saskatchewan for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? How prepared are the Hamilton Tiger Cats for the Toronto Argonauts, and the
Well,
reverse for both?
I think we'll leave it there because it looks like Eduardo's here. Eduardo, I think we're good to get out.